Hello, and welcome back to Making Sense with Shweta. I'm really glad you are here with me today. Today, we are going to talk about something that is so prevalent, but we rarely talk about it, you know, and it's there in our everyday lives, in pretty much our every moment. And it's quite a big thing, and I do not really understand how it gets so overlooked pretty much all the time. What we are talking about today is adjustment and how a lot of adjustment all the time can lead to self erasure. Adjustment is something that pretty much all of us do so naturally that we almost stop noticing it. We adjust in very small ways every day. We adjust with people, we adjust with family, with friends, we adjust at work, we adjust in relationships, and we adjust in ways that how do we plan our day around everyone else's needs. And honestly, I feel that adjustment is a very normal part of life. You need to have some level of adjustment capabilities to live uh, a life that flows, whether when you are living or working or building relationships with people, things always do not exactly happen the way you want. And some amount of flexibility in all these areas of life is healthy. It helps things move, it helps people coexist, and it helps relationships breathe, you know. But I think what gets tricky is that sometimes we get so used to adjusting that we stop noticing what it's costing us. And that is where I thought it would be great to talk a little about this. How do we know that we are being flexible, or how do we know that we are adjusting just way too much and that we are slowly losing ourselves and moving away from ourselves? Because that line can become blurry very quickly and very easily, especially when many of us have grown up being taught that keeping peace is a sign of maturity. A lot of us were raised to avoid creating discomfort or causing confrontation. And we were raised to be very understanding and to not react too much and to let things go, do not let things fester. And pretty much always think about how the other person would feel. And over time, I feel that this can become such an automatic way of being that we don't always stop to ask that what we are feeling in that moment, you know. And honestly, I notice this a lot in everyday family situations. Sometimes somebody asks something personal, it could be about your plans, it could be about your relationship status, your career, your body, things like that. And instead of noticing your discomfort, the first instinct is to smile and move through it. It doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel easy to answer those questions, but it just feels easier to not be in that situation. So we move along. And there is nothing unusual about it. Most of us have done it so many times that it has started to feel so normal. But when this becomes the way we respond to every uncomfortable thing, there's something that happens. We stop checking in with what actually feels right to us. And Instead, we just focus on how to keep that moment smooth. And after a while, that habit also starts showing up in many other different parts of life. You know, I feel that it could happen at work in a very similar way. Like, you already have enough going on. You are tired, your day is full. Maybe you also have like a little headache that you're dealing with. And still, when something extra comes up where, you know, you are expected to take up more work despite being overwhelmed, your automatic reaction to that situation is yes, yes, okay, I'll do it. And sometimes it feels awkward to say no, you know, sometimes because being the one who's dependable becomes a part of your identity. And sometimes it's just also our incapability to say no in such situations, not because we do not want to say no, but adjustment, just adjust, do it, what's the big deal? And sometimes, it could just feel like that you are being responsible, you are the responsible one. But over time, if this keeps happening, you start feeling like your time and your energy is not something that you really own. Not because someone is forcing you to do that thing every time, but because you've become so used to stretching yourself to accommodate to what others need. And in the same way how it shows up at work, it can show up in relationships as well. And I feel this is where it gets a little more difficult to notice, because love just naturally involves adjustment, and so does friendship. So, of course, you are going to make room for the other person. Of course, you are going to consider their preferences and their comfort and their way of doing things, and that's normal, right? That's part of caring. But sometimes, without realizing it, your own likes and your own dislikes start becoming less visible in the relationship. You stop asking that what do you really want. You only focus on doing things that will make the other person happy. And if that becomes a default for too long, you can slowly lose touch with your own preferences altogether. And you know you won't even realize it. And I feel like these kind of situations are easy to normalize because of the way that many of us are raised. And if you are an easy child, you are praised, and the one who never creates any kind of problems is appreciated, and the one who is pretty much always open to adjustment is seen as mature. So naturally, we try to build this identity of being manageable, and we want to be easy to work with. We want us to be easy to love. And while there is this certain warmth in it, it can also become tiring when it always comes at the cost of your own comfort. And I feel because after a point, it can start feeling like you are present in every space except for your own inner one, and there are so many ways that we can feel that we are adjusting, like or how do you feel after adjustment? I think it's one of the biggest takeaways of what it's doing to you. Sometimes compromise feels okay. You may not get your way, but it's fine, it's fair. You still feel included in the decision. But sometimes, after adjustment, there is this heaviness and this discomfort that one might feel, that maybe you may have agreed to something too quickly, you know, like your words, outer words, and your inner thoughts were not completely aligned. And if that feeling keeps repeating, then I feel like you must pay attention to that. Because it might not just be about the situation itself, it could be about how often you are moving away from yourself just to keep things easier for everybody else. And the real question I feel in this situation is less about whether adjustment is right or wrong. It's, I feel like it's about noticing what you are giving up uh, in that scenario. Sometimes it could be just a preference, and that's okay, and it's fine that, okay, fine, you do not like chocolate, but if there is a chocolate cake for someone's birthday, you are like, okay, fine, I'll have some. That's just a matter of preference. But when this adjustment starts showing up in everyday situations, in bigger scenarios where you have to deal with your boundaries, uh, that is where I feel that it gets a little harder to keep ignoring it, you know. And to be honest, I feel that choosing yourself is actually very much simpler than what we imagine. Uh, it doesn't have to be this big, huge conversation. It doesn't have to involve that at all. And sometimes it's as simple as asking yourself what you really want before you automatically jump to saying yes. Just that 1 second where you check in that, hey, do I really want that or not? Am I okay with this? Am I okay to play along? Or maybe there is something that I'm not okay with and I would like to do it differently. So, and you just have to ask, I feel, these small questions that, would I still say yes if I wasn't worried about disappointing someone? And I think a lot of the answers lie in that little moment where you ask yourself that one small thing. You know, all you have to do is that you have to include yourself in that decision. And just that little step, I feel, can make you feel lighter. So, honestly, like, I'm not against adjustment at all. Life, families, friendships, relationships, they all need adjustment. That part is very real. But there should also be enough room for you and your reality and your tiredness, your discomfort, or a difference in opinion, or your pace. If adjustment always asks you to leave those paths behind, it it becomes really difficult to ignore then. So the next time you are adjusting or you are compromising, say in a situation, just think for a moment, and without jumping in into a conclusion or automatically saying yes. Just ask that, do you really want to say yes? Like when you are getting slammed at work and finally your day is over, it's 6 p.m. and you are ready to leave, and suddenly there more work comes and you are expected to do that, and that's a norm for you. You've been doing that for so long. Your immediate reaction is to say yes, but just try saying no in that moment and see how other people react around you and how you feel after that. Just choose yourself, you know, and just be a little more aware of your boundaries, of where you could be adjusting or where you could be completely erasing yourself, like you do not exist in that situation. And it's very much possible that you have become so used to adjusting that you do not even hear yourself anymore. So the idea is to bring back those parts which are to the surface, which are not so uh, compromising in nature, and see how that makes you feel. See how saying no makes you feel, and seeing how making your voice heard makes you feel. Thank you for spending time with me today, and I hope this has given something to think about, and just see where you are adjusting and where you would like to say no, and how it impacts you, how it helps you. I'll see you in the next episode.